Here are some of the most lavish coins sold at Stack's Bauer's Spring Showcase auction. The peace dollar was supposed to announce victory, but its initial high-relief implementation was too ambitious for mass coinage. In January of 1922, George Morgan then tried to save the high-relief design without surrendering its core spirit. He reduced the relief, reworked the design by hand, and struck a 3,200-piece trial run to prove the concept. 3 samples were sent to Mint Director Raymond Baker: a satin proof, a circulation strike marked with 3,200, and this coin, the sandblasted proof. Only 6 are known in all formats, and this is the singular matte witness to the Mint's struggle to turn a medallic ideal into a working silver dollar. It's graded as proof 63 and sold for $252,000. In 1899, the Liberty Head Eagle was quietly approaching not only the end of its century, but in a few years it would also be replaced by the Indian Head Eagle. But in the meantime, Philadelphia still struck proof gold for a small circle of collectors able to preserve it. Only 86 proof eagles were made in that year, and perhaps only 35 to 40 of those survive to this day. This absolutely breathtaking example is graded as proof 67 deep cameo from PCGS, making it tied for the finest at PCGS and CAC, and when its turn on the auction block arrived, it sold for $264,000. In 1875, $3 gold was already a denomination without a real public purpose. Then, the Philadelphia Mint made it stranger still. No circulation strikes, only proofs. The official delivery was just 20 coins, sold in short gold sets and complete proof sets, with a few others evidently made later on. That tiny beginning made the 1875 the great key to the series after the unique 1870s. Fewer than 24 have been traced in modern census work. This coin comes from the fabled Carter collection and is graded as proof 64 cameo by PCGS. When it crossed the auction block, it raised $264,000. The 1861 Paquet Double Eagle is a rarity created by distance. And you see, Anthony Paquet's new reverse design, with its narrow, tall lettering and altered border, was initially approved, shipped west, and then almost immediately rejected in Philadelphia over concerns that the rim would wear too quickly. The order to cease production reached New Orleans in time, but in San Francisco, 19,250 pieces had already been struck and released into commerce by the time that the order to stop production had crossed the continent. Today, an estimated 100 to maybe 275 coins survive, and mint state coins are nearly unobtainable. This AU-50 example was offered from the Admiral's Cove collection and raised $312,000 at auction. In 1908, the St. Gaudens Double Eagle entered its next act. Congress had restored In God We Trust, and the Mint answered with the first regular issue sandblasted proof of the series. Only 101 of those coins were struck, the number that suggests, well, some level of optimism on the new design. Time and tide would then reduce that population to perhaps 60 or 70 survivors, and few preserve the finish with this example's sheer clarity. Graded by NGC as proof 67, it would see a closing price at auction of $324,000. By 1910, the St. Gaudens double eagle had moved beyond experiment into refinement. The public design was settled, but the proof coinage still asked a harder question. How should modern American gold look when made for collectors rather than commerce? The answer to that was the satin proof, or the so-called Roman finish. Softly luminous rather than mirrored fields and contrasting cameos, the mint struck 167 proofs in 1910, but most never found buyers and were later melted, leaving perhaps 50 to 60 survivors today. This example stands as proof 67 plus in a PCGS lab and was sold at auction for the sum of $336,000. The Lonergan story ended in the spring of 1861, as the old Federal Mint was swept into the Confederacy after April the 8th. The same building, the same presses, the same gold served a different flag. Somewhere between federal authority and Confederate necessity, the 1861 D half eagle was struck. Only 75 to 85 are believed to survive today, and no more than a dozen of those are mint state, including this absolutely stunning coin from PCGS with a grade of MS63 that saw a closing price at auction of $408,000 by final call. Charlotte's Half-Eagle series ended in 1861, just as the nation was tearing itself apart. Only 6,879 pieces were officially struck, and 887 are believed to have been made under Confederate authority after the mint's allegiance had changed. This coin was likely struck earlier, while Charlotte still operated under federal authority or control. But its uncertainty is part of the power, I suppose. It belongs to that final chapter of Southern gold. Today, it is believed that around 200 examples survive, including this MS63 example from PCGS that was sold at auction for $408,000. During a troubled time in world history, the US Mint was forced through necessity to switch the copper penny to a steel composition, only for a single year. But that allowed one of the greatest mint errors ever made to see its debut. The 1943 cent struck not from steel, but instead from bronze. That accident became a national obsession. The 1943 copper penny sent generations searching through pocket change, kept alive by teenage discovery stories, rumors, and the impossible thought that a fortune might be hiding in a handful of cents. One of those discoveries is this 1943 S cent, one of only 7 confirmed copper pennies from San Francisco for the year, graded by PCGS as AU55, and at auction, well, it raised no less than $456,000. The Stella was born of an ambition larger than just a single coin. In 1879, Washington flirted with the idea of an international gold piece that could move just as easily through European commerce as American hands. And the proposed answer was this $4 gold pattern. Barber's flowing hair design of the 2 Stella types, produced in tiny numbers for congressional distribution before the entire experiment quietly subsided. That failure is the source of its fame, a pattern never adopted, yet too important to ignore. Here, graded as proof 67 plus and sold for $492,000 at auction. Before the Indian head gold eagle became a finished masterpiece, it was a mint room struggle over relief, rims, and even authority. Multiple designs and models were made to try and get the coin ready for mass production. This is the fabled rounded rim issue. 31,500 coins struck, then 31,450 condemned to the melting pot, with just 50 spared for museums, officials, and selected insiders. Today, probably fewer than 40 of those coins still remain. This example is graded by NGC as MS67 Plus Star and raised $630,000 at auction. In the early 1880s, Philadelphia all but stopped making double eagles for commerce. Treasury policy pushed gold into smaller denominations, and the result was a date like 1882. Just 571 circulation strikes, only 59 proofs, and many of those later melted when buyers never came. Today, fewer than 20 are confirmed to still exist, and this example from the Admiral's Cove collection is graded as proof 66 deep cameo and realized $810,000 by the auctioneer's final call. Subscribe to WNN and feel free to watch more amazingly rare coins right here next. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.